Hey everyone, welcome in to another daily editorial here on the KE Report. I'm getting an update from Aztec Minerals, a news release that came out just yesterday, July 17th. Sample results from the Tombstone Project. Sample results really from across the project. I'm going to post figure 1 so all of you can see where these samples came from. They are the red dots. And we're going to talk about what kind of follow-up work the company is planning here to continue exploration. I'm chatting with Simon Dyakowski, President and CEO of Aztec Minerals. Aztec Minerals is traded on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol AZT and on the OTCQB under the symbol AZZTF. Now, Simon, speak to figure 1 here. I'm going to post it in the show notes below the interview. These sample results, the red dots, they're spread out. It looks like all over the project and a lot to the south of this Westside extension target, one that we've been talking a lot about. Give us a bit more of an understanding why you sampled really all over this project and even less so within that Westside target, please.
Yeah, Corey, thanks again for having me on just a couple weeks after our last call, but we've been very busy and this week released the results of our reconnaissance sampling program. Our previous 2 results releases over the past few weeks have been focused on chip channel sampling within the contention pit, and obviously we've chatted about that, but as a reminder to the listeners, those results and the program there was designed really to fill in some surface knowledge gaps that we had in our drill modeling. And the reconnaissance sampling program and mapping program was more with the goal in mind to identifying new targets or potentially extensions of our existing targets. And we're very pleased to result that out of the approximately 60 samples that we took, over 40% of them returned values over 1 gram per ton gold equivalent. That's just gold and silver. So very strong, and the figure 1 that we're looking at referring to right now shows with the red dots, the big red dots, where those sample locations were taken. And just to explain that a little bit more, and maybe to address why there aren't many samples taken in the Westside extension, the simple reason for that is that it's covered in gravel and fill. And so there is not a lot of outcrop available to sample there, whereas further south, there were more opportunities to go and take bedrock where it was exposed. And really the key takeaway for us is we know the Westside target's very compelling for a number of reasons, including chiefly that it was slated to be put into open pit production in the early 1980s. We don't have the drill hole database of that, but we do have some early mine plans that were shelved. So that's very important. And we also have very detailed underground maps of the geology from the old stopes and tunnels from back in the day. So those are key indicators that the Westside 82 extension target is compelling for us. But now we have a little bit more to work with, and that's the high-grade gold and silver that we're sampling in outcrop, particularly to the south of that Westside 82 target, really all along the west side of the pit. So it's quite exciting. And as we work up these drill targets, or as we work up these targets, rather 2 drill targets, they could form for the basis of an even bigger expansion of the mineralized zone beyond the better understood 82 extension of the Westside.
Okay, we can see these different target areas now. Fissure, slope, hard up, all to the south of that Westside 82 extension. But there's also these lines here, these mineralized dikes, these fissure, stringer, vein lodes. Can you explain how those play into the overall exploration and how they're included in this map?
Yeah, absolutely. So these have been identified through a combination of mapping and then underground sampling and then open pit sampling throughout the history of the project. And this is really the culmination of our geological and 3D modeling that's been underway for the first time on this project. So we've been compiling paper data that's been produced over decades and up to the modern time with our exploration, never been kind of cohesively understood in a geologic model before. We now have an understanding of that primarily from underground and surface mapping. And so we can see, I'll start with the magenta, the mineralized dikes. These are structures that have in the past been shown to host high-grade gold and silver mineralization. For example, the ones that run up and down with the contention pit are some of the locations where we've hit the highest grades of gold and silver in our drilling. And they also coincide with some of the old stopes from the old underground mining, which is a very positive sign, as that's where the old miners were going after what was sometimes even bonanza grades of silver and gold. And so now we know through our examination of the historic literature that there are a number of parallel dikes running up and down the Westside extension. And what's really exciting to us is that there are also some cross-cutting fissures or veins, typically known as veins, but the more technical term would be the fissure stringer vein load. And so we've now identified those in mapping and in our own drill data, and we have found that there are two veins that run across this zone as well. So this is very, very positive for our exploration efforts and will form the basis for drill targets, particularly where these structures intersect and where there's evidence through old historic mining records that there were big stopes taken out. So that's typically where we've seen the best grades and where we hope to drill and discover more high-grade mineralization.
So with all these sample results, all these red dots that are over a gram per ton, but some up to over 10, over 11 grams per ton gold equivalent, does this change the exploration strategy, or does it change the priority of targets for the company?
No, it doesn't change anything, but it definitely gives us a little bit more homework to do and many, many more options for follow-up for when we're done our initial phase of drilling, which will be focused on the Westside 82 extension. So it's a positive development. It doesn't necessarily change any strategy or timing or focus, but they're definitely going to receive more attention concurrently with upcoming drilling.
So what do you need to do to build up these into actual drill targets? Because these are sample results. We all know more work needs to be done before you can actually put a drill on the ground around these.
Yeah, and really that will be a little bit more mapping and maybe a little bit more sampling. We only really had time to put in about 60 samples before our program ended over the spring. So a little bit more sampling, some more modeling, and some more mapping, and they should be drill ready after that.
Simon, is it possible, since you are looking for near surface bulk tonnage type deposits here, is it possible to simply scout drill this area to get a better handle on what might carry some of the highest grades closer to surface?
Well, absolutely, it's possible. And we have not finalized any drill targets yet. And that's all subject to discussion and approval by our technical committee, which is populated by some renowned geologists. But, certainly there is the potential to scout drill some of these targets if it's deemed appropriate on a kind of risk reward basis. Very expensive to drill, no matter where you are. And so we want to make sure that our drilling efforts are, give us the highest percentage chance of adding value to the shareholders. So I'm not going to say definitively right now whether we are or not, but there's the potential to do so.
So then what comes next? Are there more sample results to be released? Is there more work to do on that Westside 82 extension, or do you move into drilling? Give us a roadmap here.
Yeah, we've done a lot of legwork over the past year, but intensifying over the past few months. So the next phase of work should be drilling here, and our timing for that would be hopefully late August, early September to get going on that. So we do have RFPs out. We're about to select a drill contractor and finalize our targets. So in terms of what will be communicated to the market, we will divulge the details of that once we finalize them internally, and then we'll do our best to give regular updates on when that program will exactly start and then how many meters have been completed and some updates on what we're seeing in the chips.
So in terms of funding future exploration here, yesterday as well, you also announced a life offering for $1.5 million at 18 cents Canadian per unit. That has a half warrant at 25 cents for 2 years. Would this money go to funding exploration here?
Yes, and that is basically noted and broken out in our use of proceeds on our life document, which is posted on the investor page of the Aztec Minerals website. So there is about a $600,000 drill budget built into that, and that we expect to get underway in planning and execution upon closing of this financing that was announced.
So, Simon, we've talked a lot recently about this Tombstone project, but the company is also 100% owner of that Cervantes project in Mexico. Any updates you can give us on that asset?
Well, I can say that we certainly haven't forgot about that asset. We've been doing some internal desktop study on the best path for further exploration there. And while we're not committing to anything just yet, the hope would be to get back on the ground later this calendar year after the end of the rainy season when there's a good weather window to go in and do some groundwork. Something we really haven't had a lot of opportunity to do over the past couple of years is a robust surface program. And why we want to do that is because we certainly see room to grow the Cervantes project, particularly around the California zone. We did have a small drill program late last year, just about 1,600 meters, and it was quite positive. We hit excellent expansion of our primary target, but we sacrificed some of the more step out targets to the north that we would have liked to have done. So we want to work those up and hopefully see where Mexico's at this autumn and see where our shareholders are at in terms of supporting some further drilling and expansion of that project as well.
All right, Simon, that brings us up to speed here. As I mentioned, I will post Figure 1 from that news release in the show notes, as well as link to the company's website so all of you can read over that news release and some of the prior news releases that Simon and I have touched on. If you have any follow-up questions for Simon, please email me, fleck@kereport.com. I'll also include that in the show notes, and I'll follow up as we get some more news out of the company. Simon, thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate the update.
Thank you very much, Corey. Have a great day.